Have you ever wondered what really brought the mighty Roman Empire to its knees? We often think of barbarian invasions and political corruption, but what if I told you one of the most devastating blows came from an invisible enemy? An enemy so small it could hide on the back of a flea, yet so powerful it could topple an empire that had stood for 1,000 years. This is a story of the plague of Justinian, the pandemic that changed the course of history. In the mid-6th century, the Roman Empire, or what we now call the Byzantine Empire, was on the brink of a glorious revival. Emperor Justinian I, a man of immense ambition and energy, was reclaiming lost territories in the west. His brilliant general Belisarius had reconquered North Africa, Sicily, and even Italy, the very heartland of the old empire. It seemed like the dream of a restored Roman glory was within reach. The Mediterranean was once again becoming a Roman lake. But then, in the year 541 AD, something arrived in the port of Pelusium in Egypt, a bustling hub of trade connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe. It came on grain ships, carried by rats, and on those rats, fleas. These fleas carried a deadly bacterium, Yersinia pestis, the bubonic plague. From this single port, it spread like wildfire. The empire's vast network of roads and sea lanes, the very things that made it strong, now became highways for death. The plague reached the magnificent capital, Constantinople, in the spring of 542. At first, it was just a few strange cases. But soon, the numbers exploded. The historian Procopius, who lived through it and wrote a terrifying first-hand account, described how the city descended into chaos. At its peak, he claimed the plague was killing 10,000 people a day. The city ran out of places to bury the dead. Bodies were stacked in towers, thrown into the sea, or left in piles in the streets. The stench of decay hung over the grandest city in the world. The symptoms were horrific. Victims would develop a sudden fever, followed by grotesque swellings, the buboes in their groin, armpits, or neck. Some fell into a deep coma, while others became deliriously frantic. Procopius wrote that there seemed to be no logic to who it struck, rich or poor, young or old, virtuous or wicked. Even Emperor Justinian himself contracted the plague. Miraculously, he survived, but he was a changed man, and his empire would never be the same. The devastation was unimaginable. Historians estimate that the plague of Justinian may have wiped out between 1.25% of the population of the Eastern Roman Empire. Think about that! 1 out of every 2 or 3 people you knew, gone. The economic impact was catastrophic. With so many farmers dead, fields lay on, harvests failed, leading to widespread famine. The tax base, which funded the army and the state, collapsed. There were simply not enough living people to collect taxes from. This is where the story of military conquest turns into a story of survival. Justinian's ambitious plan to reunite the Roman Empire was dead in the water. His armies, already stretched thin, were decimated by the plague. There weren't enough soldiers to defend the newly conquered territories, let alone push further. The Goths in Italy and other groups saw their chance and fought back with renewed vigor. The resources to fund the war had vanished. The grand reconquest ground to a halt. The plague didn't just stop there. It kept coming back in waves for the next 2 centuries, each time weakening the empire further. It created a power vacuum that other forces were all too happy to fill. In the east, the Sassanid Empire of Persia, Rome's longtime rival, saw an opportunity. And a few decades later, a new, dynamic force emerged from the Arabian Peninsula. Unified by Islam, they faced a Roman Empire that was a shadow of its former self, depopulated and exhausted. It is no coincidence that the rapid expansion of the early Islamic caliphates occurred in lands that had been ravaged by the plague. The social and psychological impact was just as profound. How do you make sense of a world where death is so random and so absolute? Many saw it as divine punishment, a sign of God's wrath. This led to a surge in religious fervor and a turn towards fatalism. The classical confidence and rationalism that had defined the Greco-Roman world began to fade, replaced by a more spiritual, medieval mindset. The plague didn't just kill people, it helped kill an entire way of looking at the world. So, when we talk about the fall of Rome, it's not just one single event. It was a long, complex process. But the plague of Justinian was a critical turning point. It was the catastrophic event that shattered the dream of a restored empire, crippled its economy and military, and paved the way for the rise of new powers. It was the invisible enemy that did what no barbarian army could. It brought the Roman world to its knees and helped usher in the Dark Ages. It's a chilling reminder from history that civilizations, no matter how powerful, are always vulnerable. Sometimes, the greatest threats aren't the armies at the gates, but the microscopic enemies we can't even see. It truly shows how a single, tiny organism can redirect the entire flow of human history. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what other historical mysteries you'd like to explore. See you next time!